We need to understand that if we're in the medical field, that HIPAA regulations are going to be all over us, and somebody can go to jail. Generally, it's those with the purse strings, so that works out very well if you need somebody to write a check for something, right? Gramm-Leach-Bliley, GLBA, if you're in the insurance business, finance or the finance sector, right? So you have these compliance targets. All of these things play into strategy. The strategy itself will drive the policies of the corporation. You mentioned rules and behavior and awareness programs and those kind of things, right? There's where your policies come from. Policies come out of the strategies. Strategy drives your operational controls, like your management, like your monitoring, right? Like your assessments. You test and you retest. You test enough to be able to establish metrics based on a standard. Take your pick. ISO 17799 maybe. If you don't know that number, you can go look it up. ISO 17799. All right? There are 10 domains within that standard. COBIT, C-O-B-I-T, IDLE, Information Technology Library, right? So you can go through these different standards. Chances are not a single one of them is going to be one size fits all. There will very likely be a blend in there that's going to get you to what you need. The point is you seek out metrics, you establish the metrics, and then you measure. And then you implement your programs based on this strategy, that drives the policy, operation controls, and the technical controls. And then you remeasure based on the metrics that you established. I hear a lot of return on investment on security. We were with Jackie earlier, who teaches a lot of that stuff. There is so much suggestive and so much left to opinion in return on investment for security that, frankly, it's very, very difficult. What she said, Harvard's trying to do some work on things like that. Being in this business for as long as I have, there's not a single return on ROSI, right, return on security investment model that any of my partners or vendors or even the stuff that we've come up with, that I can't take a marker and a whiteboard and just shoot it full of holes. Because at the end of the day, it's always subjective, right? However, if you establish a set of metrics within your own company or within your customer's company or however you're going about this, and you stick to those metrics, allowing for evolution of the organization, of course, but if you stick to those metrics, when you remeasure, now I can show you progress. I can show you where I scored if my score levels are 1 to 4, 4 being the best, and I colorize those things, green being great and red being bad, and orange and yellow in the middle, whatever, doesn't matter. I can show you that based on the metrics that I allowed or that I established on these standards to begin with, when I retest, I can show you that the programs, the policies, the operational controls, and the technical controls that I put into place from that period in time, I can show you where I have been successful and where I have not. That allows me to refocus my resources, my efforts, my money on better technologies, better processes, better people, more people, less people. Do we need to go to an outsourced type of a methodology? My answer to that's always yes, because I have a security operations center that I like to keep those guys employed as long as I can. Right? Can somebody else do this for me better, faster, and cheaper? It's very possible. Right? So then you retest. And you have another look at your methodologies. Generally annually is what I recommend. To have a look at your metrics on an annual basis. But then you test. And it may not be an enterprise-wide test. It may be divisional. It may be asset-based. You may test your core infrastructure quarterly, monthly. We have services in our SOC where we launch vulnerability scans daily, even for some customers, where we're daily looking for rogue devices. We're looking for unpatched systems. We're looking for things in the network that may go bump in the night. Right? We're constantly looking for those things. Okay. Questions? Anybody? I said make this conversational. It's been
How do you manage policy compliance? Like if you're a company that has that you work globally, mm-hmm. and so the corporate policy, I'm assuming, is going to have to also comply with the policy in the other country, right? So that as far as
right, because within the European Union, right, you've got a different set of security standards and some things like that. Typically, for our large, world-class enterprise customers, there's a global set of policies that is the skeleton, and then we allow them to become specific to the theater. Right. So you have this is the European set of policies. I think the core of the question, or if it isn't, I'm going to kind of make it that way, is how do you measure that? How do you actually make that work? A couple ways to do that. There are some programs out there, and you can either go out and buy them, or you can certainly come up with one yourself, where if you do not pass the test, so to speak, online for going through security policies, if you do not read, accept, and pass the test, that is tied directly into access control. Your username and password will die. You will not be granted, you will not be allowed to reset your password unless you read the security updates and you answer some questions and you recertify. So you have to successfully pass that test before your account will be allowed to be turned back on, or to be turned on to the beginning with. If you're provisioning users, security ties directly into HR, right? So when you hire somebody, you want to make sure that they've gone through the security training. So it becomes behavior and awareness. Right? We want to make sure that people know, do not bring a laptop in here and do not plug it directly into my network. We do not employ wireless devices, period. Interestingly enough, the companies that have that policy, we find, are the most vulnerable to wireless devices. Because inevitably somebody stops by Office Depot on the way to work because there is no wireless access anywhere in the company, and they want to go sit in the break room or the park or the whatever office, and they'll attach a wireless device to their network and put one in their laptop, and off they go. The people that employ the policy to deny wireless access seem to be the ones that are the most vulnerable to having rogue wireless access points. That's not on the slide anyway. It's just purely from observation. But to answer your question, certifying, having users actually go through that process costs a lot of money. That's a very expensive solution to that, but it is one solution. Please.
Have you noticed an increase in corporate security servers at all over the past 10 years at all, or is it pretty much remained the same as far as to the level of attacks that have gotten through security? So have companies gotten better at technical attacks, or are they still getting penetrated on a regular basis?
Yes to all of those. The attacks have become more complicated. I would suggest through the 90s, certainly, the attacks were primarily for pride. I was able to get into, whatever, if I say any name here and this goes out, I'll be in trouble, but if I was able to get into whatever big financial institution's network and plant a flag, yay for me, look at me, I'm great. So there's accolades that go along with that. And then people in that community started realizing, there's some value to being in there. So now we attach money to it. So then there became, extortion, some things like that. And, if you don't pay me money, I will hack your network. That's always the sexy thing, and there's movies about those kind of things, but that's actually about this much of the actual extortion that goes on, at least in my experience and working with the FBI and so forth. So as the exploits became easier and as the money became bigger, now organized crime gets involved, right? Because now these mob guys can be in Europe somewhere, and they can establish these bot networks, and they can just